Made you change your vote to present?
Well, we negotiated over the weekend. I was here all Friday, all Saturday, all Sunday until the evening, and we were negotiating with the Speaker's team with the White House. I think, got some great conservative wins, and as a result, I was able to change my vote from a no to a present so that we could move this bill forward. Look, I support President Trump's agenda. I support what he's trying to do here. Nobody wants to see taxes raised on the American people. I certainly don't, but we've got to do this in a fiscally responsible way that does not increase deficits year over year, but actually decreases deficits. And that's the whole point right here. Our country's in a financial situation that is very dire, and I don't want to see it go off the fiscal cliff into the abyss.
Well, Congressman, it's one thing to be moved from no to present. It's another to be moved to yes. What does the Speaker still need to deliver to you to make sure you are a yes vote if this gets to the House floor?
Well, we've got some work to do on Medicaid yet. You know, I think it's not right when the federal government pays more for able-bodied, non-working adults to take care of their medical concerns than it does for those in the most vulnerable population. That would be the disabled, the moms with small children, the elderly, that vulnerable population right there. The federal government is only spending $1.33 for every dollar that the state puts in, yet for able-bodied non-working, we're putting in $9 for every dollar that the state puts in. That's 7 times more for able-bodied non-working. I'm sorry, but those folks need to be working. And so one of the things that we managed to achieve was an increase in the working requirements in this particular bill. I mean, right now, the bill as it's written has working requirements not starting until 2029. That's unconscionable. That's like saying, hey, get a job, but you got 4 years to do it. Where we need to have those regulations written immediately, and we need to have those work requirements moved up until next year.
Well, you've got a lot of eyes on you right now, Congressman. You can't read a column or hear a story about what's happening right now with some Republican upset about reconciliation without bumping into your name. What's it like having this kind of heat? Is your phone ringing off the hook from constituents? Have you heard from Donald Trump?
Actually, we've gotten a lot of support because the thing is this. I came to Washington, D.C. to make our country more fiscally responsible. In our everyday lives, we've got to be responsible. We all have budgets. We've got to stay within those budgets, stay within those spendings. Businesses understand that, too. The federal government needs to understand that. I'm a small businessman. I understand what it's like to spend only within your means. The federal government has to get there, too. The president wants a balanced budget. So we are working very hard to get us to the point of moving us to a balanced budget. It's going to be a while to do that, but this bill is a critical opportunity in which to move us toward a balanced budget.
Well, and when we consider the spending cuts you were just alluding to, Congressman, going back to the federal Medicaid assistance percentage question, you answered that in response to me saying, what does the Speaker still need to deliver? Should it be our understanding that leadership has not made a formal offer on FMAP specifically?
Well, I think, as the Speaker said earlier, everything is still in flux. Everything is still negotiable, and nothing has been firmly committed to. So we're in that process. We have a little more time. Congress works on deadlines, and unfortunately, I like to get things done early. That's not necessarily the way it happens here in Congress. But we've got to negotiate to a point where the budget itself is either budget neutral or it reduces the deficit, not increasing the deficit, and we're not quite there yet.
Congressman, it wasn't too long after your Budget Committee hearing on Friday that Moody's announced its decision to downgrade U.S. debt, arguing, much like yourself, over the impact on debt and deficits in the many years that we've been having this conversation. This obviously is something that's important to us, to our audience, and to the markets. Was that downgrade deserved?
Well, I think that just shows how right we are. That adds credence to our argument. That downgrade has to do with the fact that Congress for many, many years has not been controlling spending. We have a $2 trillion deficit every solitary year. And Moody's is like, all right, well, if you're going to go out and sell more debt, then you need to be more fiscally responsible, or we're going to give you a downgrade. And as a result, Moody's gave us a downgrade from AAA to AA1, and that means we're going to have higher interest rates. That means the interest expense, which is a mandatory expense in the federal government, is going to go up. If we're going to issue new bonds and pay off the maturing bonds at the lower interest rate of about 1%, we now have to offer 4% or more now with this downgrade. So the interest cost is simply going to spiral upwards. That is unsustainable, and we've got to stop that. And that's why we're fighting so hard for fiscal responsibility in this particular once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-generation opportunity.
Do we risk, though, Congressman, that fight for fiscal responsibility, knowing that a lift to the debt ceiling is embedded in this package, running us too close to the X date and putting even more question into the full faith and credit of the United States?
Well, I think that's another part of this particular bill. You know, if we can do it only with Republican votes, we can work on that debt ceiling as responsibly as possible with the smallest number of add-ons and requirements. That way, the Democrats get nothing for the increase of this debt ceiling, and we can do it all with Republican votes. I think it's being done in the most fiscally responsible way possible.
That would require this timeline to hold, though, Congressman. Speaker Johnson wants a floor vote before this week is out. Will he get one?
I don't know. That's a great question. I'm one person, and I will work very hard to ensure that the president's agenda is fulfilled as much as possible in this bill, and that it is done and I keep saying this, in the most fiscally responsible way possible, wherein we can get 218 votes.